Our film begins with a family consisting of a father, mother, and their little daughter. We learn that their name is Fabio Louis and their daughter is called Teresa. What we know is that she has been having a lot of nightmares lately about a large dog running after her. It appears that Teresa is dreaming like this because of their neighbor's dog, which is a very large and ferocious dog and also scares Teresa. Then we meet Roy, and the one who meets sees their neighbor, the dog owner, playing basketball with each other, and after playing, they talk to each other about their lives, and we learn that the two want to improve their relationship with their wives, and at this time the idea comes to them that they had dinner together, and in fact they saw that he and his wife were going to them and playing at dinner, so he agreed. Roy and Fabio were on the idea, but they couldn't leave Teresa alone because of the dog, so they asked their neighbors to lock him up for a while so that Teresa knew how to come with them. So she decided that she would agree, and it was because she didn't want to lock up her dog. When the night came, Roy and his wife went to the neighbors, and during dinner they talked about their jobs, and then she tells them how she met her husband, and we find out that they are trying to free pigs from breeding farms, and this is because they are both interested in animal welfare. So she tells her Fabio because their story is more interesting than her and her husband's story, and this is because they got to know each other through the dating app. Suddenly, and while they were talking, they heard the dog barking very loudly, so Fabiola started to knock, and this was because her neighbors wrote to her, and she was thinking that they had really locked him up, and not only that, but also, she took the dog out and started to bring it closer to Teresa to get to know him, but the dog came back barking again and louder to the point that Teresa was terrified, so she gave it to Fabiola. She takes her daughter and returns home, and then she fights with Roy and tells him that there is nothing in common between them and their stupid neighbors in order to be close to them, and Fabiola feels that their neighbors treat the dog as if it were their own son. And the next day we see Teresa looking at her toy in the house and getting tired when she sees her toy with the dog and the one who cuts it. Despite this, she fumbles close to him to get her toy back, and Therese holds a stone in her hand to scare the dog with it, but the dog attacks her and bites her hands. At this time, she reaches for Fabiola, and she still has a spray bottle, and she tries to keep the dog away from her daughter, and the dog actually gets scared and stays away. Then, all the while, she takes Fabiola, her daughter, and leaves. The hospital and the doctor inform her and her husband that Teresa's injury is very serious, and not only that, but it is also possible that she will not be able to move her hands again. They inform the doctor that she needs to be treated quickly so that she can move her hands, and she knows that she was in the accident. She decides that she will go to the hospital together, and they will have a gift in the form of a dog for Teresa. However, they refuse to apologize for what their dog did, and this is because their daughter was the one who got close to him, so she became angry with Fabiola and fought with them. She also refuses because she takes the gift and leaves and walks away. When night comes, Roy calls the police and they talk about what happened, but the police do not do anything because what happened was not one of them. Specialization, and because of this, they will not be able to take any action, but Fabiola does not want to give in and remains adamant that they do anything to keep the dog away from the house and take away their daughter's right, and she kills Roy. He calls his friend, Marco, who is a lawyer and has many connections with the local authorities, so he sold Jeb Roy with the idea and calls immediately. Marcus finds out what happened and asks him to help him, so Marcus agrees, and after a few days the police arrive and take the dog, and Anait continues to walk away and tells them that they are supposed to take Therese instead because she was the one who made a mistake and got close to the dog, but the police do not listen to her words and take the dog from her by force. And she continues to cry and try to catch her. He guides her and they hug her, and it appears that Marcos is putting the dog in an illegal place, and that they are treating the dog there in an ugly way, and Roy feels guilty on Fabiola's day, because she is the one who let him talk to Marcos, and he tells her that the measures they took were wrong, so she decided to ask Fabiola from him, and that he does not feel guilty, and this is because they called the police first. But they did not do anything, and suddenly the electricity was cut off in the house, so Royo and Fabiola became afraid, and this is because sparks came out of the electricity, and Risa woke up from sleep, shaken, and she told her mother, telling her that she saw the dog watching her from the window all night, and Fabiola's stomach hurt her, and she told her that she must have been having a nightmare, and she asked including that she rests and sleeps, and the next day, Royo and Fabiola discover that someone is the one who cut off the electricity to them, and they learn from the neighbors that they saw Anai watching from behind the house, so Royo and Fabiola decide that they are talking to a young man so that what happened will not happen again, and he breaks up when they see him confessing that his wife made a mistake, and he apologizes to them on her behalf, and they learn that they are finally moving the house again to start their lives again. And before they see him walking, he leaves the toy dog in front of Petroy, and finally he and Fabiola feel calm and return to their normal lives again, and this is because their scary neighbors are no longer there, but they do not continue to be happy. Because Teresa gets up from them, shaking, and this is because she saw the dog watching them from the window. The second time, Roy decided to go around and find out whether his daughter's words were true or not. After he felt that someone in the street was watching them, Roy went outside the house and left Fabiola and their daughter inside, and at this time Fabiola discovered that the alarm system malfunctions at the same time. Marcos tries to call Roy, but he does not answer him, so he calls Fabiola and learns that he was investigating the matter of their neighbors and discovered that he saw and terminated that it was not their real name, and not only that, but they always use names like this, and she believed Fabiola when she discovered what happened. It wasn't the first time with them, and we go back to Roy, who finds a cigarette in the back garden, and he learns that their neighbors are still there and they haven't spoiled the house as they said, and they read. He looks for them to end the farce that is happening, and we go back to Teresa, and what we see is that she is holding the toy dog and remains sitting next to her mother, and at this time Fabiola notices the window is open, so she decided to lock it quickly. This is because she suspects that someone has entered the house, and that is why she locks herself and her daughter in Teresa's room. At the same time, Roy is completing a turn on Grano, and suddenly someone appears wearing a dog mask with their paws on him, and he has a sharp tool in his hand, and a man is dragging Roy in with it. The same moment, when someone attacks Fabiola's house and she is trying to guide her daughter and they do not want to open the door, but the person attacking them breaks the lock and opens the door and it appears that it is Anai, and the one who remains is also wearing a mask in the shape of a dog and trying to enter Risa's room, but Fabiola she uses all her strength to stop her and succeeds in cutting Anai's hand and keeping her away from her. She closes the door quickly and Fabiola is relieved. But she is afraid when someone knocks on the door, but it appears that Rue and the one who is hugging her first enters, and Ping is reaching them even though he is bleeding, and she imagines when she sees the wound in it. Legs, but in the end, the three of them are together and decide that they are leaving the house and asking for help from anyone, and this is because they have no other choice, and when they leave the room, they meet Shafa and Anhi waiting, and they remain wearing the dog mask and imagine Fabiola, when they know him, that they will take their clothes and tell them that it is an eye for an eye and a life. Their daughter intended to kill their dog, and this means that they wanted to kill Teresa, so Roy's house was disturbed, and he was trying to protect his daughter and asked Fabiola to take Teresa and run away, so they ran quickly and went to their neighbor George's and rang the bell. But no one was able to open it for them, so Fabio asked Teresa to let her enter the house. Through the door of the animals, Teresa manages to enter Georgie's house, but she finds him tied up and unable to move, and it appears that Shava is the one who did this to him. At the same time, Shava catches up with Fabiola and hits her in the brain. Then he drags Shava back to her house, and after that he goes out to look for Teresa, and when he arrives when he comes to Georgie's house, he finds him untied and decides to protect Teresa. We learn that Georgie was a boxer, and that's why he succeeds in controlling Shava easily. They beat him until he lies on the ground, and then he and Ters run away to protect her. At this time, he does not notice the presence of Anai, who is nearby. From them and her dust, she continues to run after George and Teresa in the woods until she reaches them and succeeds in reaching them. Suddenly, Georgie's neck is cut and she is killed. At this time, Siobhan is able to move and return to Royo and Fabiola's house and reveal his plan to them, and they know what he intends to do to their daughter, and he tells them that he will leave Teresa their daughter. She suffers exactly like their dog, and when Peter sees Royo, Fabio releases an electric shock, which he will use to torture Teresa. They know that Anai will return their daughter home so that they can have fun, but they torture him. At this time, Roy feels tired because he has lost a lot of blood, so when he sees that he lights up a cigarette, he refuses to try. At first, but he agrees after Roy is begged, and it appears that Roy has a plan, and the first time he sees him approaching him, he takes off the mask from his face and sprays him with the substance he intends to torture his daughter with, and then he sees that his face is burning, but he shows them to Roy, and he electrocutes him until he dies. And one day, when Fabiola sees her husband is dying before her eyes, but she no longer knows how to do anything other than grieve for him. At this time, Anna returns home and Teresa stays with her. She finds her husband's face burned and Roy murdered, and Anai is tired because her husband killed Roy and this is the mask. She wanted Roy and Fabio to see their daughter being tortured before she kills them and after. So, Anai takes her husband to the room for a second to treat the burns on his face. At this time, Teresa succeeds in freeing her mother, and they then try to escape before Anai gets out of the room, but Anai returns to them quickly. However, Fabiola succeeds in hitting her in the brain with a hammer, which causes Anai to fall on her head. The floor and her brain are flopping around in the chair, and then she loses consciousness and Fabiola and her daughter quickly run away. After a while, he comes out of the room and finds his wife lying on the floor. He gets angry and decides to take revenge on her. He grabs the knife and looks for Fabio and Teresa, who are hiding on the second floor and try not to make a sound, but Teresa steps on the dog. The game is played by mistake, and then Java listens and he attacks them, but Fabiola decides that she will fight with all her strength, and she grabs the hook and cuts his neck with it. When he enters the room, he sees that the one who falls on the ground is still unable to move, so she waits for Fabio for the opportunity quickly, and she and her daughter escape, and he quickly exits the room, and they go down to the ground floor, and she enters. Fabio goes to the room where he ends up in order to take the key to the car from her pocket, and this is because it is the only way they will be able to escape. Fabiola succeeds. She leaves the house and reaches the car, and before she walks, she decides that she will take revenge and returns to Shifa to confirm whether he is dead or not, and leaves Fabiola her daughter in the car and returns home. She stays with her golf club, and this is because it will not give Shafa a chance to live. When she reaches him, she beats him in the brain with a stick until he dies. Fabiola is relieved when she kills Shafa, but she gives charity when she goes downstairs and does not find Anai present, and this is because she realizes that her daughter is in danger and runs Fabio in the car, but after it is too late. This is the time because Anai was still alive and had passed out, but when she woke up she went out and kidnapped Teresa. She goes to the police station and talks about what happened. The police continue to look for Anai and publish her pictures in all the newspapers, but the investigators are unable to reach her, and as days and weeks pass, Teresa remains present and Fabio is there if we see her. She is alone and feels helpless. However, she continues to call the police so that they can return her daughter, but neither Anhi nor Teresa have any traces. In an unknown place, we see Anai, who has completely changed her appearance. It appears that she lives alone in a large, elegant house. Anai goes out of the house to go shopping, and she returns home and brings the new dog food. Then she goes to the ground floor to serve him food, but suddenly Teresa appears, who remains locked in the basement, and we see her tied around the neck like a dog, and it appears that Anai has decided to torture her and replace her with her own dog.
Hello.